Yeah, I think one of the biggest thing that I would personally expect from this budget is the government's intent in the direction of fiscal consolidation and fiscal discipline. We've heard a lot of statements being made in the past that we should get the fiscal deficit down below a comfort level of under 3%, and there's a path defined over the next 3 years how we're going to get there. Currently we are at 4.1, 4.2%, and this budget in my view should be a very strong indication of what we plan and how do we get it to that level over the next 3 years. So this is the first full budget where we should see a fiscal deficit number coming well below 4%, and I think that will be a very key expectation from this budget. So let me, maybe it's the obvious, stating the obvious, but let me first say that SMEs really play a very, very important role in any growing economy or developed economy across the globe. In India, also, if you look at statistics, it's one of the largest employment generators. Over 60 million people employed in the sector, contributing to about 45% of total industrial output, more than 40% to our exports. So SME has a very, very important role to play if we were to go back on our path of 8% plus GDP growth. There are three big challenges which plague the sector today, and they are: number one, availability of credit; number two, delay in payments by large corporates and PSUs; and number three, technology upgrade to be competitive at an international level. With these broad themes, I expect the budget to start addressing some of these challenges to make SMEs more competitive, delivering more both in India and competing at an international level. One of the biggest things that we've heard in the past, and in line with a very forward-looking projects that Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi has started working on, which are namely Make in India, Digital India, Skill India. Some of those are very clearly directed at getting GDP growth back on track, and each of them, the initiatives under each one of them should help the SMEs becoming more competitive and getting some answers to those challenges which I just referred to. So I think one of the biggest things is that there clearly some tax swaps are required. Two or three things which have been in discussion with the ministries for a very long time. One is the whole definition of MSMEs itself, which was put together in MSME Act in 2006, and we haven't had a revision on the definition of MSMEs since that time. It's been 9 years, and in 9 years, you know the inflation data and how things have moved, but the definition continues to be the same, which takes away some of the government schemes from the enterprises which have grown in size and have kind of grown. So it's kind of worked as a disincentive rather than incentive for growing the business. So, so we expecting a clarity on the definition, which we also expect to be more dynamic, connected with some sort of inflation number, that it can be a little more dynamic. Second, some of the tax swaps are expected to boost the both investment cycle in industry at large and specifically in the SME sector. So very interestingly, the schemes have been announced in last two budgets, and let me tell you, the utilization on both the schemes in last two budgets have been very, very poor. And we need to think about a little more radically about how do you make this fund grow. For example, if one of the suggestions that we've been making to the government is that if we are committing sovereign funds of 10,000 crores, can it be put together in a fund structure where a lot of other large FIIs would be happy to come and contribute, maybe become 5 times, so becomes a 50,000 or 60,000 crore, and then look at different vehicles for disbursing this money for the right SMEs and in the right sectors that we want to push through. I think it will play a very, very important part in overall in the vision that has also been put together by the union government with regard to taking manufacturing from current 15% contribution to GDP to above 22% in by year 2020. And I think in that direction, manufacturing has to really come back strongly, and for that, use of these funds more judiciously, and a proper vehicle for dissemination of these funds is a very, very important method to address that. We've also been recommending that besides SIDBI, which is a very, very important institution which is focused clearly on smaller enterprises and medium enterprises, we can have banks participating in the larger SME funding, and maybe it's a case for even getting some specialized banks which are maybe just specifically SME banks, given that Ministry of Finance is also, plus RBI has also been looking at giving differentiated bank licenses. Maybe there is a case in point now for having specific SME banks which are looking at just looking at this sector from meeting the funding requirements. So take a minute, go back to what I said at the beginning of the discussion, that there are three large issues: availability of credit, which means there is a definitely credit shortage in terms of demand versus supply, what is available. Second point, delay in payments by large corporates, which means increased requirement of working capital. And third point, which is technology upgrade, which means there's a technology fund specifically required to upgrade the technology today in a fast changing environment to make our SMEs competitive. If you look at all these three, they point towards one, which is the availability of capital for basically making our SMEs grow, thrive, and be competitive in the international space. So we really definitely do address that.